Okay. We will be talking about ICE in the USA, the riots, and what we are actually witnessing. What are we looking at here? What's happening? And this is going to be a this is going to get dark because it is. Hi there, KP Heathen. Good to see you. Good to see you. And Stephen, hi there. So I'm a little bit late on this topic, I guess, but I've been out camping, hiking and camping this weekend. Well, the weekend that was. I guess actually in the USA it's still Sunday now, Sunday evening. But yeah, a lot of people have talked about this, of course, because it's quite. Yeah, I like the words to describe it, what's happening now, but essentially in the USA now, people are losing their freedom. That's what we're looking at. This is the making, the making of an authoritarian state. And ICE is now being used as an iron heel to keep the population down, to keep them in fear, and to keep them bending the knee, which is a tragedy to witness, especially when we're talking about the USA, which is supposed to be about freedom. Um, and you can point at other countries, you can point at the EU and all of that, and criticize, as you should. But we are going to keep it to the USA now. This is not a pissing contest, you know. Sorry, I'm using such a rude word. Angela and Tom, Austin, Wes, Bushwriter, yeah, good to see you all. We have some moderators here, which is good. Yeah. So Renee Nicole Good was killed. And I think you need to be extremely subjective to believe that it was in any way, shape, or form necessary to shoot her. That the ICE agent was almost being run over. No, he was not. He was leaning into the car from the side, shooting her. That's murder. It's simply murder. Now, also, we have Alex Pretty. And I've looked at that video footage as well. It's not nice to look at that. He was murdered. They beat him to the ground, and they removed his legal concealed firearm, and then they shot him. They killed him. And none of this can be justified, and it should be obvious. It should be obvious no matter what your political stance is. It should be obvious that this is thugs. We're looking at thugs with, if they have any training, just minor training, it's disgusting. And they're just killing these people. We all know that the USA, they have a problem with, have had a problem with illegal immigrants for a long time, and something needed to be done by that. But this is not that. And here's the thing: I hope everyone, no matter your political views, no matter what you think about immigration, everyone should understand the following. The ICE agents are being used as an iron heel. Do you know that term? An iron heel by the authorities in the USA to keep the population in fear, to keep the population obedient. That is what needs to be understood here. Now, I'm sitting in Norway, and in Norway, relatively speaking, we don't really have such a high amount of immigration. Um, people confuse people confuse Norway with Sweden usually, um, but it doesn't matter. You know, you could say, "Oh, you don't know how bad it is in the USA with the immigration." It doesn't matter because what I'm looking at here is not about immigration. What I'm looking at here is the making of an authoritarian police state. I'm sorry to say this, but if you think that these people are going to be used only to strike down on people, on, illegal immigrants or people protesting, you're wrong. They're going to be used to keep the population, that is, the people in the USA, in check. This is the exact same development as you saw in Germany in the 1930s. It is the exact same thing you saw in under Stalin. I'm not saying it is yet that bad, but it is the beginning of that. And it needs to stop. It is very sad that this is happening in a country like the USA, a country that, mind you, as Europeans, we did until recently look up to certain elements of the USA. The freedom, the American dream, you might say that's a lie, but you know, it seems to, and that is what they that's what it looks like they're aiming to get rid of now. And here's a crazy idea, okay? Here's a crazy idea. The one thing more important to Americans than Jesus is firearms. And you shouldn't be too surprised if the current administration restricts your Second Amendment rights. You shouldn't be too surprised if that happens. Now, I'm not going to say you heard it here first. Well, maybe you heard it here first, but other people are saying that as well. Um, and, you know, I can't emphasize this enough. This is about your decency. This is about your integrity. This is about being able to think. What seems to be happening now is that a lot of people, they don't think. They refuse to see what's happening. And because they refuse to see what's happening, they also fail to understand the development. They can't acknowledge that these two instances were murders, plain and simple murders. And I also heard that another individual was beaten so badly that he is now permanently blind. Wolf of Odin, you have been here for a long time, and you can disagree, that's fine. But this is a very serious matter, and I don't think it is about the left or the right. It is, of course, very convenient that the people in power have this division that I believe, I wouldn't say that that's their plan to divide the population, but the population is divided, and that's very convenient for them. So this needs to stop. I don't know how to stop it, but I will say this, and it's going to be yet another unpopular statement, but I would consider getting out of the USA now. And I will add, before it's too late. Because if this development continues, and there is nothing to suggest that it won't, because you have a senile president now, surrounded by authoritarian people who don't care about you at all. And they have a vision for America that is probably not your vision for your life. They desire power, and power of you as well. I would leave if I could. Where should it go? I don't know. But it's getting so dystopian in the USA now. It's being called a failed state. I don't know if I would call it a failed state, but I never actually, here's another unpopular opinion. I never considered the USA to be a civilized country, and that's simply because they have the death penalty, and I don't consider any country that has the death penalty to be a civilized country. That's because the state should not have that amount of power over any individual. Wolf Odin says Europe is worse. Where in Europe have you been? Have you been to Scandinavia? Which countries? Because, Europe it's very different. It's not all the same. And that's an honest question. Yeah, Tom, Davos leaders. So, so this is again, an exercise. Have you been to Germany? Oh yeah, I seem to remember you have mentioned that before. So here's another thing that people need to be reminded of the following. I see a lot of people now there pointing at the summit, the big meeting in Davos. And they're pointing at those, especially the Canadian, was it the Prime Minister? And he did a very good speech. I will see a very good speech there. But what people are doing now, and it's so, they are saying Trump bad, EU and the European leaders in Canada good. Because we as human beings, we have this tendency to think in good, bad, black, white, yes, no. But it's not like that. I wouldn't trust any of those people meeting there in Davos, to run anything. They are drunk on power, and they don't have your best interest in mind at all. So it's not like, oh, we need to listen to those people because those are the good ones and Trump is bad. Yeah, at this point, Trump is bad. But those people arriving at Davos with their private jets and all of that, come on. It's just not people I would trust. So, but again, this live stream is about what's happening in the USA now, and I'm very worried. I am worried because it seems they're not backing down. And at the top there, they have people that are in bed with, the quite extremist big tech leaders like Peter Thiel. You know, um, you should look more into Peter Thiel. Don't do it late at night because it might keep you up, might give you nightmares. So I don't know. I guess it's up to you what you think is good and right. If you support the killing of these two people that I mentioned, if you think that they deserved it because they didn't bend the knee, then yeah, that's your right to believe that, but I disagree. Uh, Ideologically speaking, or politically speaking, I'm an anarchist, if you want to know. But I'm a theoretical anarchist because I realize that anarchy would never work. So, um, so naturally, I do not support an authoritarian state. Another thing is that the USA took pride in being a small state country. They were never, well, they haven't been a small state country for a long time, but that was the image. But it's not, of course. It's massively overweight the the people too, but um, the administration is too big, So here I go again, challenging you because what I think that when Elon Musk went in there and he with his Dodge, um, I could see as someone with an economic background that that was necessary. Was it done in the right way? No, it was not. It was too brutal and too quick. Um, so yeah, but what we're seeing now is a might is right ideology. And we're seeing that the, the American officials, when they're talking about the other world, they are talking from a might is right viewpoint. And they seem to be directing that way of thinking inwards towards their citizens as well. That's, it is a very dangerous ideology. It's or lack of ideology. I don't know what to call it, but the might is right ideology. Let's call it that. It is the trademark of dictatorships. It is. It is the opposite of freedom. So this is why they're not backing down. This is why they are mistreating good, honest citizens in the USA as they are doing now. And you know what? It is your right to protest. It is your right to stand there in the street shouting at the ICE agents if they disagree. I guess, well, you can't do that right in the road, blocking traffic and so on. But you shouldn't be killed or beaten if you choose to do that. Then, you know, they should talk to you. You can't be here in the traffic. You have to stand there on the sidewalk. Um, and if you refuse, then they might use some force to remove you and put you on the sidewalk. But that's not what they're doing. They're beating people, and they are, as someone who I have some minor experience in not that line of work, but I used to, when I was a student, that was my only job I ever had. I worked as what do you call it, private security guard at night time, and it, you can't mistreat people. You have to. It is your job to keep to treat people with respect, even when they do bad things. If they are tagging on a wall, you have to treat them with respect. Actually, even when they do that. But this is the opposite, and I honestly, when you look at the thumbnail to this live stream, that's let's see, what's his name? His name is Gregory Bovino. He's a leader or some kind of official there concerning the ICE agents. Look at his coat. You only need to stick a Nazi symbol on his shoulder or his arm, and it's like straight out of a movie, playing the Nazi villain. And I and the haircut, it's, you have to wonder if it's done on purpose. I don't know. Maybe he just thinks that's nice. That's a good look. Maybe that's what he thinks. So now, people are very emotional about this, and I see that in the chat now. And that's okay. You can have that opinion. But when I see something like this, I have to call it out. And you know what? I could stay silent. I can think, oh no, I will lose subscribers. People who have been following me for a long time, they will not like me when I say this. But first of all, I will say whatever I want. And secondly, it is a sign of respect to you that I'm saying this. So, yeah, they're murdering people. So let's see here. Jay thinks I can't, after 10 years being active on YouTube, that I can't read the media. You really think that, Jay? You really think that? Please reconsider your thinking there. So, yeah, I think that just if you want to know, part of your job as someone commentating on serious matters like this is that you have to get into a habit of putting your emotions and your opinions somewhere else. They don't matter. Only facts matter. This is important. So, Okay. Wicked World says the unfortunate reality is we either support border enforcement or we effectively have no border. It's that simple. Well, that's the angle they used early 1930s in Germany, actually, because they were in a very difficult situation, and not all of the people there liked what the National Socialists were doing, but they thought, oh, this is our way forward. It's the only way to do it. We have to support this, and look how that went. Trond says, if we get a police state here in Norway, I will protest as well. In my opinion, this is not about political direction, it's about people's lives. Yes, that is true. I absolutely agree. Wes says, there are so many conflicting videos, it's insane. Yeah, so what you can do with a video is, first of all, you have to keep in mind that it's very easy to tamper with videos like this, and also you can use AI now to make it look a certain way. So I will actually say that if you look at alternative media's representation of the footage, I would generally, at this point, not trust it. So the way to do it is that you have to get different angles from news outlets that do not use AI. And this is important to understand. You can't at this point know if it's AI you're looking at, AI or footage that has been changed using creative editing. As someone who makes videos, I can tell you that you have to understand, for instance, perspective. But we won't get into that now. But I can promise you that if you trust me at all, you don't have to. But as someone who's made hundreds upon hundreds of videos, you have to look past the camera perspective here. And if you do that and you look at footage from different angles, you can see quite clearly that none of those two murders were done in self-defense. They were just murders. They killed those people, and they did not have to do that. Do you trust Reddit? No. What would happen if you interfered well, if with the police in Norway from doing their job? Would they just slap your hand on the wrist and send you home, or what? No, they don't hit you, because we are still a civilized country. I wouldn't say we were a civilized country during COVID, but the police, at least, they try to act in a civilized manner. If you interfere with the police here, you will be physically removed, but they don't hit you. They don't hit you. They don't chain you. You know, the police in Norway generally they do a very good job. I have police in my family, in my close family, and we have several cases where people protest. They chain themselves and so on because of typically, the wind turbines and so on. They don't like that. I don't like that. And the Sami people, sometimes they chain themselves and so on to a location And then the police, they have to move in eventually, and they cut the chains and they carry them out in a nice way. They're not being bullies, they're not being thugs. So the police in the USA have something to learn there. The police in the UK as well have something to learn, but I would say the police in the USA is much worse than the police in the UK. And the ICE agents are, what I've seen is just thugs. That's bullying. And they remind me so much of the brown shirts in 1930s Germany. Norway is a completely different demographic compared to the United States. Impossible to compare the USA to Norway. Yeah, you could say that. Norway is very ethnically quite monogamous. Is that the word? And we have a different mindset. We don't view the police as the enemy, and the enemy, they don't. No, we don't view the police as the enemy, and the police don't view people as the enemy. The police here, they have to have a 3-year bachelor degree in order to start patrolling the streets. Is it more now? Yes, they have proper education. Homogeneous. Oh, monogamous. That's something different. Yeah. Did I say monogamous? Homogeneous. Oh, yeah. Actually, Norwegians are not very monogamous. We are worse than the French statistically. That's a very different topic. Sorry. Yeah. Cyrus says slap on the wrist to let something slide and told not to do it again. Okay, so I misunderstood the expression there. Well, they're not going to be told not to do it again because it is their right. Protesting is seen as a right here. Yeah. So I will add something here that is an interesting angle, I think. I have said before the following. In the America, well, vote for Odin, thank you, I appreciate that. We can disagree, that's okay. We are both adults. When it comes to America or the USA, I've said before that I think that the Second Amendment works as a little bit of like, here's some guns you can play with while we take away all your other freedoms. And then you can say, we have our guns, so we are the freest nation on the planet. And I think it kind of works a little bit like that. But what would happen if the current administration starts removing or limiting people's right to carry firearms? I understand it's not the same in every state, but what would happen then? I'm not saying that's going to happen, but that would be interesting. Do you see the professionally made signs? This is not an organic protest. Listen, first of all, it is an organic protest, but you need to understand that whenever you have a movement, people, two things happen. certain political fractions move in and they try to take an advantage of the situation. And that's different from saying that those political fractions are starting the protests. I don't think they did. Okay. The other part here is that when you see protests and they're all carrying the same sign, do I have to say the fucking obvious here? Whenever a demand rises, people see that demand and they try to make a buck on that, so they print signs and they sell them, and they sell them either to the political fractions or the organizations now supporting the protests, or they just sell them to people, you know. Uh, and it's not like I understand the angle here. I understand what people are trying to say when they say that, because they are trying to say that, oh, no, no, Americans, in this case, Americans, they just love what Trump is doing and the current administration of psychopaths are doing. They just, sorry, they're not psychopaths. Some of them are probably sociopaths. They love what they're doing. And it's only these nefarious, that's my new favorite word, by the way, organizations and leftists trying to make it seem like people don't like this. They are doing this, not people. That's why you see the same signs. They're carrying the same signs. No, wake up. People really don't like what they're doing here, okay? There's a large portion of the population not supporting this. Tom says they follow police around and harass them. You mean the ICE agents? Yeah, I'm sure they do, as they should at this point. Stoney McDoobie says it's... Yeah, I'm not familiar with slang, but okay. I'll read the comment. If someone disagrees with one side, it's always paid for in their eyes, not that people have different opinions. It blows their simple little minds. Yeah. Yeah. So let's switch it around. January 6th, often referred to as, what's it called? The attack on the Capitol. Please give me the words. I'm Norwegian. You have to help me out here. January 6th, insurrection. I almost said resurrection. Yeah. Okay. Let's flip it around. And yeah, that was the Trump people doing that. They were behind that, and Trump was to blame for that. You know what? I don't think so. I think that people were fucking fed up, and the politicians there, while they were clutching their pearls, and after that playing the victims, I think it's very simple. That was a movement as well. Do I support it? No. But it was a large degree of discontent. And when it comes to the election results, I will only say that the development during that night was statistically very interesting. And I will stand by that statement. But that's, so you have to again apply the same thinking when you don't really like that angle. Get what I'm saying? And it's I will say that, um let's see here. Sorry, I got out of the lost my track here in the chat. um uh, Yeah, Trump warned of the stark prospect of civilizational erasure in Europe and cautioned that if present trends continue, the continent will be unrecognizable in 20 years or less. Well, that statement is not entirely wrong. It is not a good statement, but they are referring to the immigration into Europe. But Europe, here's what they don't get. Europe is many different countries, and it's not all the same in all of Europe. But it's like, not saying, I'm going to use an expression that doesn't mean I think that Trump is the devil, but if the devil tells you something that is true, it doesn't mean that it's wrong because the devil said it. I'm not a Christian, by the way. It's just an expression that I made up now. And I think that Europe has a problem with immigration, and it is changing European civilizations, plural, in a negative way. And that's not an extreme statement here. You will see politicians left and right, not far left, but at least in Scandinavia, saying the same. Well, maybe not exactly those words, but at least they're saying that we have to limit immigration. But so yeah, that is true. But then this old man there with his funny hair in the USA, he says, "Oh, America is the greatest country in the history of mankind." I don't know if he's able to use such words anymore. But America, I love the USA. I've been to the USA and I really, really like the USA. But it's not the greatest country that ever existed. Greatest, biggest, the biggest country doing things in a bigly way. I um it's not. So this is, but okay, I'll leave that. The problem here is that people are so ideologically, they're being so subjective now that they can't see that you had two people killed and that it wasn't self-defense on the behalf of the ICE agents. People are so subjective in the USA now that, and it's a minority, I understand, but it's they can't see that this is the making of an authoritarian police state. And I am seeing that Republicans are now speaking up, raising their voice against this. They are seeing what is happening, and you shouldn't you shouldn't be so subjective about this that you can't see what's going on. Um, yeah, Random Yank says, I never liked such statements. It is arrogant. I think all nations bring good things to the table. That is fair. I don't like stuck up people. Yeah, so I would say the Roman Empire might kind of crush the USA when it comes to the most influential, biggest empire, who well, China, um, the Mongol Empire. It is, when you say that the USA, which is a very young nation, is the greatest, biggest, most wonderful, and all of that. When you say that, it reveals that you don't know anything about history at all. And I don't think, Trump. He used to be quite clever. I've seen some footage of him when he was much younger. He was very articulate, and he seemed intelligent back then. But now he's not. And he says things that are just not true. And he's standing there in Davos talking about Greenland, then he mistakes Greenland for Iceland, and it's like Biden again, you know. It's I hope for the USA the following, that the next president is not surrounded by these sociopaths like J.D. Vance and Peter Thiel and Stephen Miller, people like that. I hope that you get a president and an administration that is just decent and realistic, not so much ideologues. That's what I hope. And maybe you could get the president, in his or her 40s or 50s, someone much younger, you know. What about that? Wouldn't that be an idea? Yeah. Um, uh, yeah, statism is being mentioned here, and yes, I think that you are seeing statism in the USA. This is statism, and if you don't know what that is, you understand what that is. Um, um, yeah, police state, the definition. You know what? I'll find the definition here in a dictionary. I'll try to find it for you now, since we are discussing what that is. Let's see. Yeah, we will use the Merriam Webster. Hold on. A political unit characterized by repressive governmental control of political, economic, and social life, usually by an arbitrary exercise of power by police. So, yeah, the USA is getting there. Absolutely. The next step would be to control the media. And they don't at this point. They don't. And that's probably because the media in the USA hates Trump, except Fox News, I guess. So there are different elements that must be in place for a country to be a police state. But yeah, so I guess maybe it's wrong to call it a police state, since they do not control the media yet. My prediction, if you, and I don't think this will happen because, but okay, in my prediction, if the following happens, next election, well, first you have the midterms, and if they keep their if the Republicans win the midterms and the Republicans win next election, I don't think that will happen. But if that happens, I think you're going to have a theocracy, like a Christian nationalist state, because we're talking 7 more years. 7 more years. And that's going to be the end of all your freedoms. You're going to be okay if you are the right kind of Christian and you always agree with the government. But if you don't, you're not going to be okay. So, yeah, Jeffrey says, if we have midterms. Yes. You're going to, and if that happens, you're going to have people coming to your house, knocking on your door. That could be the police or some other department. If you, for instance, use, Wolf of Odin, are you still here? Yeah, if you use that nickname on social media, yeah, try doing that in a theocracy. Try doing that there. We shouldn't. That will not be okay in a Christian nationalist state, because there you have to be a Christian and the right kind of Christian. So yeah, Sauris. I always have different. I that's a Gaelic name, right? And I always have difficulties pronouncing it. But you're saying that you heard Trump looked into a way to stop the midterms. Yeah, I would say if that happens, or even if it's just delayed, then I would say yes. Now you have you don't have a democracy anymore. You don't have freedom anymore. You have an unelected government. Now, we're going to talk about democracy in the USA a little bit also. Because when I started saying, using the term democracy, I'm just waiting for someone to write what I'm thinking about here in the chat. No, yeah. So whenever I said, democracy, I saw comments that said the USA is not a democracy, it's a republic. And I thought that's an odd thing to say. You can't have a republic without it being, well, you can actually in theory have a republic that is not also a democracy. But the thing is, democracy, yeah, republic. Democracy is a method, it's a process. Yeah, here we go. It's a constitutional republic. Yeah, so, okay. And the following is obvious to most of us, okay? You have democracy because that's your process, that's your method, to elect people who represent you in your constitutional republic. You can also have a monarchy. Now, I'm against that. I'm against monarchies, and I think Norway should be a republic. Norway would be a constitutional republic. We have a constitution. Most countries have a constitution, but we have a democratic process. The king hasn't any. He's just there. He doesn't do anything. He has no power. So their job, the people that are voted in using the democratic process, their job is to represent the people that voted them in while they uphold the Constitution. So this is what I'm saying here. It should be obvious. But the interesting part is that when people in the USA, those people in the USA who are saying it's not a democracy, it's a constitutional republic, when they're saying that, it is in their mind. They're also thinking, and because it's the constitutional republic, it's our way or no way. Not Norway, but no way. It's our way, the constitution. And whatever the people want, whatever people vote for, it doesn't matter. Because it's the Constitution, it's the founding fathers and all of that matters. And it will always matter. And the next step is also saying that the USA is the Christian nation. And you're hearing these people saying that a lot now. Well, it's not. But it is so dangerous to think that way because, thank you, by the way, I'll say the word now, because you could if you remove the democratic process from your constitutional republic, what do you have? What do you have? What do you have when an administration with a president on top are saying to you, we are going to make sure that the Constitution is followed, upheld, and we do not want the democratic process anymore because this is not a democracy. What do you have then? What do you have then? You have a dictatorship. That's exactly what you get. If you remove democracy from your constitutional republic, you have dictatorship. It is that simple. So, now, the US Constitution, it doesn't mention Christianity. So if you want to follow your Constitution, you can't also say that the USA is a Christian nation. So, Article 6 specifies that no religious test shall ever be required as a qualification to any office or public trust under the United States. First Amendment, the Bill of Rights, guarantees that Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. So, you have a secular nation. And you might not like that if you are a certain kind of self-proclaimed Christian, but that's what it is. I'm becoming unpopular among certain people here. Um, but it's important to me to call out evils. When we see evil, we should call it out. Fire and Iron says you're not making any sense. I just read from your constitution, so I hope you're saying the constitution doesn't make any sense. Audrey says religion should not be part of politics. Yeah. And a response here to Uval: there is no such thing as Judeo-Christian value. Well, that is interesting because you have to look at those are two very different things. Judeo-Christian. Why are they saying that? Because it's said often. It's, I mean, Christianity appeared in the time after the alleged death of Jesus. Jesus was a Jew, and obviously, so it was like this cult that rose after his death that became Christianity. And it was a very interesting development. Jesus are said to have said that if you don't hate your parents, you should not follow me. So it was actually an anti-establishment, anti-family movement. And it provoked the people in power. Now, we don't know. We actually don't know if Jesus ever existed. But people like that existed at that time. And it is a different, it's a difficult topic because it's very difficult to get funding for proper research on things like that because it's so people are so emotional about it. Now, Judeo-Christian, it's those values 2,000 years ago. It's not your values today. It really isn't at all. There is very little. You have very little in common with those people's values. Those are not your values, I hope. What you have to look at is the Germanic cultures or culture, however you look at it, because that was the environment that shaped that cult that grew into a religion that moved north, and it shaped the religion and it shaped the values. That is what people call Judeo-Christian values. But it has very little to do with, well, first of all, very little to do with Judaism and very little to do with original Christianity. So it's an interesting discussion. And I kind of think that if you call yourself a Christian, that's fine. I have many people I know are Christians. And I think that present day Christianity brings a lot of positivity and good things to the world, not the kind of Christianity you see in the circles around Trump now in the USA, but you know, it's I would say, you know, many would say it's about love and forgiveness and things like that. And that could be a good thing. Self-forgiveness could be a good thing to many people. But the term itself is a bit foolish because you should say, you could say, Germanic Christian, Germanic Christian, something like that, values, or just Germanic values. Not German, Germanic. Germanic. So, yeah, what's Christian values? What are those? I'm pretty sure you don't think that everything that the Bible says is good morals. I hope you don't think so. Yeah, Protestant Christianity even is closer to what we call Christian values today. But again, you don't have so much in common with the early Protestant Christianity. Interpreting parts. Yes, well, you have to do that because otherwise you're looking at a fucking psycho book. It's just a collection of stories and legends. Honestly, it's obvious. So it's Leviticus, isn't it? Leviticus. Yeah, you should be killed for, is it growing the same crops on the same different crops on the same field, and how you should beat your servants and slaves and so on. It's in the Bible. So, but I'm reading it the wrong way, I guess. It's only the parts that fit with what you think Christianity is that should be taken into account. It's always like that, isn't it? Yeah. But it's like no, I'm not. Hold on. Yeah, well, you have a few. It was not only in the Leviticus that says you shouldn't be gay, and they often use that. It says in the Bible. Okay, and I'm like, I don't care what it says in the Bible, but if we're looking at the Bible, Leviticus also says a lot of crazy stuff. Romans, I'm reading from, I don't know this by heart, by the way. Romans 1:26-27 is also cited, condemning homosexual acts. But yeah, it's like if you use that quote, well, I'll use another one then. I'll use another one, and if you are so selective about your Bible quotes, I can be that too. But that's sorry, that was a bit of a sidetrack there. Let's see. Yeah, there has to be a balance between freedom and order. Yeah, I agree, but how should that mix look? I'm someone who think that we should have a lot of freedom and very little order. And I'm like, I often use the example. um, sorry. with i- i- people driving a car under the influence of some substance. That should not be legal. Um, and it's obvious, right? And so you have things like that, and I am against taxes, except we have to have some taxes to pay for um, sick people getting treatment, schools, hospitals, caring for older citizens, and so on and so on. Um, so we have to have some taxes, but not as much as we have now, of course. Um, yeah. So there needs to be a balance between freedom and order. I agree. But just to finish this live stream here, what we are seeing in the USA now is the making of a police state. And it's obvious. And I understand that people are protesting. I understand that people are upset. And as I said previously in this live stream, um, I think I actually think that if you are in the USA now, you should have a plan B, and the plan B should include a way to get out to another country. Maybe you won't have to, but it's good to be prepared. So, to them, thank you. You're saying congrats to 10 years. Yeah, well, Yuval says you should have a plan too from Norway. Well, yes, that is true. So yeah, the my main channel, not this one. It's the channel that has my name. It's in the video description. It is 10 years today, and I celebrated by going for a camp up in the local woods there with my kids this weekend, and I made a video, and that video is on the main channel. YouTube celebrated my anniversary in its own way by dumping that video in the basement, not recommending it. So that's business as usual on YouTube. Isn't it wonderful? Thank you, YouTube. Yeah. Um, oh, thank you, Jay. Thank you. So if you saw that video, thank you for that. Um, yeah, but I get it. Maybe not so many people are care. Maybe not so many people care that I've been making videos on my main channel there for 10 years. I care, so that's why I made the video. Um, Blades of Chaos says, your wife broke her leg 2 years ago. Finally able to get and do a hike last week. It was great. Oh, I'm glad to hear that. Um, Frodelius says, how about just stopping to read the news and let the police do their job? Uh, how about no? How about speaking up against an increasingly authoritarian regime? How about exercising your freedoms and your right to voice your opinion? How about that? How about recognizing the development in the USA right now, which is much too similar to the development in the 1930s Germany or the Soviet Union. How about that? How about never forgetting the names of those two who were killed? Yeah, how about that? So I'm going to end the live stream with that. I said at the beginning it's going to be a little bit dark, this one. And yeah. If you happened to stumble upon this live stream by some miracle and you're still watching, please subscribe. That would be awesome. I always lose quite a few subscribers when I talk about things in the USA and I'm critical. That's okay. That's your choice to unsubscribe because you got your feelings hurt. But yeah, if you didn't and you're new to this channel, you can subscribe. That would be awesome. Okay, I'm going to go and have my breakfast now, and then I'll be in the gym and I'll have a heavy squat session today. Quite early in the morning. That's the way to wake up. And then I'm actually going for a day hike with some people from Patreon, not the company, but my patrons that, yeah, we're celebrating today as well. Okay. Okay, that's all for now. By the way, I am not forgetting the problems we have in the European countries. I will get back to that.